All right, here we are. If you are scrolling and landed here today, you need to stop and listen to this in its entirety. I have a real treat for everyone today as I welcome a true Appalachian man, the Kentuckiest of all Kentuckians, Nathan from East Kentucky. This man has served as a mine supervisor, a paramedic, and now works as a long haul trucker. He's going to share a few stories with us today about his driver training experiences, both being the trained and the trainer, and perhaps shed some wisdom about the correct attitude a trainee needs to have when they get in the truck. So perhaps I'm thinking of the stuff that we talked about. I recorded that introduction. I want to make sure I got it right. So
Yeah.
maybe you can, I'm thinking of our 3-hour conversation we had earlier. Maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit, demystify for a few minutes Appalachian culture, then just transition to your story about training, being the trainer versus being the trainee, because you had some funny stuff you told me.
Yeah, nearly being deported was a bad experience as far as being a trainer goes, especially from a country that you've lived in your entire life.
When you told me that story, I know we're supposed to be introduced it, but when you told me that story, I thought about that afterwards.
Yeah.
If I heard your accent, there's no way I would be asking if you're American.
And the bad part was I was all clean shaven, no hair at all on my face. The hair on top of my head was cut short. That was an interesting day. That took what should have been a nice, quiet, smooth ride and turned it into a complete show.
Yeah.
All over some.
Oh, go ahead.
Couple words that never should have been said.
Yeah.
And not even bad words.
Before you get into that story, can you tell me, just thinking of our conversations, and like I said, I don't want to be exploitative. You don't share nothing you don't feel comfortable sharing. I'm thinking of the you told me you were a supervisor in a mine, and a lady from California came in and she wanted to interview you guys, and you're like, no, you're not interviewing me because I know what you're going to do, right? You're going to butcher it. And
oh yeah, they completely they made the whole Appalachian region, in my opinion, especially the whole coal mining community, they made us look illiterate, incapable, and to all my friends that still work in coal, I take my hat off to them because they are some of the toughest people you'll ever meet. Kind-hearted, do anything to help you. But I find it funny when the younger generation hollers, "Oh, I can outwork you," and there's 50 and 60-year-old guys still doing that, and they can outwork an 18-year-old down at manual labor.
They work because that's just what you do, right? It's generational.
Do what?
It's generational. The older guys work just because that's what you do. I once heard a guy he was saying it wouldn't about his father. His father used to come home. He was a factory man. He'd come home and just be absolutely. Oh, can you hear me?
My headset's having a little malfunction. Give me 1 second to reset it.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. It's all right. There it goes.
Good to go.
Without
what's that? You're good.
I said without my headset functioning, it kind of gets a little loud in my truck. I don't think it's still functioning. What the heck? It might connect.
This is par for the course today, unfortunately. This is just how it's been going the last 2 hours.
See. Can you hear me better now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds good.
All right. My headset, I just moved my phone closer. My headset decided it wants to do that today, which is common.
It is good to me.
I can
This is
hear you
par
all
for the
right.
course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good. But yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's,
if well, just, a fellow I used to listen to was talking about his father, and his father used to be a factory worker, and he would come home at the end of the day absolutely exhausted. And he said, "I'll bet if I went to my father and I said to him, Dad, are you doing what you always dreamed of? Are you chasing your dreams?" He said, "No, my dad, if I had asked that question, he would have said, 'What are you talking about? You go to work because that's what you do. It's just what you do, right?'" He was an
yeah.
older fella, right? It's a different generation. So
Yep.
yeah, no, but it struck me when you said that she was trying to make you guys sound like you were idiots because as truck drivers, that's what we get that all the time, right? People look at us like we're
Oh, yeah.
not educated, even though we listen to books, hundreds of them in our trucks. Probably thousands if you're doing long haul over a career.
Yeah.
So what was it if you demystify, take a couple minutes if you don't mind, and just demystify Appalachia, like what's true, what's not true, and then go into your upbringing a little bit and then transition into how you got into trucking.
Uh, Growing up, the area where I'm from, all the guys generally do for a job whatever their dad done. And for the biggest part, for a lot of us. So if we grew up and our dad was a coal miner, we just naturally walked into it with ease. And that's going underneath of a mountain, being miles from daylight. A lot of people says, "Oh, I could never do that." Well, if you've been raised around it, you have no problems doing it. Uh, for me, my dad was both a coal miner and a truck driver. And growing up, I always, when the teachers, you know how teachers in school would ask you, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I always told them I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be a truck driver. And for me, I have followed in his footsteps. I started out as a coal miner, and now I went to being full time truck driver. So if my kids ask me, "Did you follow your dreams?" Well, yes and no. Yeah, I'm doing the job that I always wanted to do. The no part is I'm not home uh, as often as they want me to be. But as a long haul truck driver, they're also understanding. They understand uh, if I get a load going to California or out to Washington State or Florida or Texas or Maine or any place like that, they understand I'm not going to be home at the end of the day. Uh, they also understand that when I push the knobs in to release the brakes, they also understand that might be the last time they see me. And as being a coal miner, they understood that when I put my truck into gear and left the driveway, that might have been the last time they saw me. So for all these years, I consider myself really lucky because I've always made it back home. As a coal miner for a really long time, 18 years, and being a long haul truck driver this long, I'm fortunate that I've made it home. I've not had no bad accidents. I've been involved in a couple that the couple that I've been involved in was due to people not paying attention or being, well, one person was drugged out of their head, and I was sitting at a red light, and they were unable to see the truck in the broad daylight because all the lights were on. Uh, Their estimated speed was 60 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone.
Oh,
Uh,
man.
the cop says, like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Man, I'm over 70 feet away from where she hit the vehicle." I said, "I wouldn't have known that she'd even hit me if I hadn't had my window down due to smoking a cigarette to let the smoke out." I said, "She never even shook my truck." And it was that was actually basically both incidences, both times that I've been involved in an accident, I've always been hit in the back end because of someone not paying attention to their surroundings. And I wished it
Did
hadn't
that lady
happened.
pass away? Did that lady
No,
pass away? That hit you?
no. She actually got out of the car and tried to run from the police officer. Yeah, that was. I told the cop, I said, "Man, I said, if you plan on getting her in that ambulance and getting her to a hospital," I said, "she's got a good cut on her forehead, but it's nothing that's going to kill her." I said, "She's just going to have a bad headache when she sobers up."
Yeah.
And yeah, they ended up having to handcuff her to get her to stay in the ambulance so they could take her to the hospital to get her the cut on her forehead stitched up. It probably didn't get over 10, 15 stitches, if that, because it was a nice size cut. But yeah, and then the other accident, uh, it was a guy that hit me, and it was on ice covered roads in Indiana. And it was one of those deals to where the road is nice and dry, and everything's perfect conditions, just really cold. Go around the curve, and the road is iced over completely. And I was stuck in traffic, and the guy realized, oh no, this is going to be bad. So he actually, the side of his vehicle hit me in the back end, and he actually drove that vehicle home. It destroyed
Yeah.
it, but he drove it home. Uh, I felt so bad for the guy. I mean, he looked at me. He said, "I realized I messed up when I tapped my brakes and I didn't slow down." I said, "Well,
Yeah.
I was almost
Well,
in
that
the ditch over the
that
same thing."
happens though.
Oh yeah, but yeah, it was that was the only two really bad things that's happened to me, uh, other than uh,
You,
nearly being deported.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I was gonna say before you get to that story, like if you're comfortable with it, like you have things haven't always been that lucky because you told a story when you worked in the coal mine, things did
Oh
happen
yeah,
where there were fatalities.
uh, I was in coal mines. My family's gotten phone calls. Hey, uh, Nathan's been hurt. That's all they would get told was he's been hurt. We got him en route to the hospital. This is the hospital he's going to be at. Uh, get there as quick as possible. And and I've had family members walk in and me laying on a hospital bed, and the nurses would have a sheet all the way up to my neck, up next to my chin, and they thought that I was dead. I wasn't dead. I was just asleep due to the pain medicine and stuff. Um,
Yep.
one incident in the coal mines, I nearly cut both of my legs off. Hadn't been working underground in the coal mines, but a couple years. Uh, Nearly cut both of my legs off running a piece of equipment, and that was due to no one's fault but my own, uh, over being in a rush. Um, you know how people tell you, if you rush and you get in a big hurry, that's when mistakes are going to be made. Well,
Or you're tired.
that was the deal that day.
Yep.
Nearly lost both of my legs. I got healed up from that. I had 5 tons of weight on both of my legs, and didn't break a bone, didn't have a single cut nowhere. But the pressure of all that weight on my legs literally pressed my blood come through the pores of my skin.
Wow.
So,
You're talking about,
then,
and it's like just in general, that's the danger of being a blue collar worker, right? It's
oh
like
yeah,
when you do physical labor, like I know I work with a lot of moving parts myself, and like
yeah,
you said, what you can be in a rush, and you can be tired, or it can just be like it's a different situation every day, and maybe you overlooked a detail. Something awful can happen like in a split second, right? It's
yes,
not just damaging
definitely,
equipment; you can kill someone or kill yourself.
yeah.
Freak
That
accidents.
day, I nearly crippled myself for life, and got lucky, and yeah. I
So
even
you
got told
transition.
by doctors that I'd never walk again, and I've proved them wrong every day of
Mhm.
my life now.
Yeah, yeah. So you transitioned out of the coal mining, and you were actually a paramedic at that time as well. Is that correct? That you were also doing
Yeah,
paramedic work? Okay, and you made it clear you had to make a point that Kentucky's standards are higher than Texas's standards and California's standards for paramedics. Is that you were going into that a little bit?
from my experience, uh, okay, I'll give you a nice little incident. Uh, I ain't gonna say no company names, but I was driving for a company based out of Texas. I was at their office uh, doing a 34-hour reset, and I walk into the office to just chit chat, with the office workers on the evening shift. I was bored, and one of the drivers comes in and tells him he thinks he's having a heart attack. And I was like, this ain't good, you know? So they called 911, and I get the guy to lay down, and I'm a checking him, and they looked at me and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Trust me, I'm not going to do nothing to hurt him. I know what I'm doing." Ambulance crew shows up. Uh, they sit the guy up and have him walk out of the building and then climb up into the ambulance and then lay down on a gurney. Uh, where I live at in Kentucky, that never would have happened. Kentucky, West Virginia, I think Tennessee is the same way. That never would have happened. Ambulance crew would have got there. That guy never would have had to have used his strength to do anything. The paramedics would have put him onto a backboard, raised him up, put him onto a gurney. After now, one of the first things you got to do is check vitals, and I had already started checking him. I had his pulse, all this already checked, and I start to give it to the medics when they arrived. And the first thing they told me was, "You're an idiot. We know how to do our job." So I stepped back, and I'm like,
Wow.
"Okay, that's a no-no where I'm from."
Yep.
Uh, they waited until they got him in the ambulance and asked the guy like 15, 20 questions before ever start taking vitals or checking to see if his breathing was labored or anything. And by the time they get there, I already had the answer for that for them. They didn't want to know. They didn't seem to really care. And I've seen, and in the state of California, I have seen uh, basically the same thing go on there. But the area in California I was at, uh, they were a little bit faster, but also the guy they show up to get was he probably weighed a lot more than the two of them was able to lift. So I kind of don't blame him on that, but still yet, that's not how it's supposed to be done. I mean, it's supposed to be held to a high standards, in my opinion, and in the state of Kentucky's opinion, a lot higher standard.
Yeah, so that lady who came in, it just, because when we were talking about on the phone, we kind of connected to that lady who came in, and she was the reporter trying to make everybody from Kentucky look like they were stupid, basically. No, she didn't know anything about you guys. She had no clue what she was talking about, what she heard. And,
here's the thing. No matter where you go, you've got the nice neighborhood and you've got the not so nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
A lot of the pictures they shown was of houses that no one had lived in for over 15 years.
Okay. And you're referring to a report she did, right? So just so everybody knows, she did a report on you guys giving interviews, and then she went out and made it from the people she talked to the way she edited it to now you're saying the houses she showed. It was all meant to make you guys look like you were living in the 1800s still.
Yeah, I mean, and several of the houses, they were so old they never did have electricity or water in them. We do still have houses standing that are like that. But that's what she wanted to show, to make us look as dumb as possible. And
and then you're talking to me. You're telling me you've been up to Toronto to go watch the Toronto Maple Leafs play hockey. You've been to Niagara Falls on the Canadian side, American. So it's like you're taking part in life, just like I'm taking part in life, just like everybody else is taking part in life. You're not sitting behind a log cabin, in the backwoods, just away from civilization, like she was making you look like a caveman. Or trying to portray you guys. Yeah.
And during coal miners' vacation every year, they literally, when they go on vacation, they either take off to Florida, to the beach, or they go to Myrtle Beach in the Carolinas, or they will go to Tennessee to Pigeon Forge. It's always really nice places, and it's not because that we don't have that kind of stuff at home. It's because it's stuff that they've not seen. So for a lot of them, but the ones that really like those places, they go to it repetitively year after year after year, and they know all the best places to eat. So.
Well, that's why I like to travel. If I, get away from the local community. I mean, it's funny. Canada is this big country. It's got all the, there's so many different cultures here, just here in Canada. They're all different. And the land is different no matter where you go. I was telling you about the Canadian Shield, that if you're into hunting, you'd love the Canadian Shield. But yet I want to go elsewhere. I could go. And I guess my thinking is I could go to all these places in Canada anytime I want, but I'd rather go to the States, or, my wife and I 10 years ago, we went to Italy. So, it's funny how we are that way. But now, you weren't on vacation. Here's where we're going to do a really cool segue. You weren't on vacation. You were working. And in your travels, it brought you to a certain trainee who called safety on safety. And I have been specifically told by Darren Waldo to ask you this story.
That was my very first trainee. Let me start this off so you'll get a good feel for how this person is. My very first trainee, also that week, that company, as I was doing my train the trainer class, that company had a trainer get killed by his trainee. I don't remember if he stabbed him to death or shot him and killed him or what, but however it was, he killed his trainer. And they was like 8 or 9 of us in there doing that class. 2 of them said no. They get up, they walk out. They looked at me and I told them, I said, dude, I said, I'm from the hills. What has not killed me yet is probably not going to kill me. So I'm fine. You know, it don't bother me. And so I complete the course. They told me, they gave me the phone number for the guy, and they said, this is going to be your first trainee. When you leave here, he will be leaving with you. I said, okay, no problem. And I said, I'll call him tomorrow. That way I can take today and get my truck cleaned back up, make it look good, nice and presentable to represent myself as well as the company. So that's what I did. And this guy, I call him and I tell him, I said, I'm sitting out in the bobtail parking area. Anytime you want, come on out. I'll be sitting out here in my truck. It's nice and air conditioned. Come on out. The guy, and I didn't really know what the guy looked like, but I seen 2 or 3 people shortly afterwards come out of the building. And this one is walking through by my truck, and he notices the unit number, and he walks up to my truck, introduces himself, and he says, how old are you? And I told him, I said, yes, you're older than me. My age don't really matter. I've been doing this longer. And he proceeds to tell me his name and then looks at me and says, did you know I can drive your truck better than you can because I drove a church bus? Okay, you don't need my training. Go inside, tell them you can drive truck better than your trainer. Have fun with that. And I didn't know it, but he called and reported me that day for telling him, you know, since you don't need me, go inside and tell them that. He found that rude. And he gets on my truck. He's on my truck for about, I don't know, maybe a week. We get down into Atlanta, Georgia. And I told him, I said, man, I said, be on your best behavior. Don't say nothing out of the way. Well, he goes in. He's introducing himself to people, which that's fine. You know, I had no problem with that. That's how you meet people. And he asked this lady out on a date. And I told him, I said, man, I said, she is in safety. She is one of the safety people at this terminal. Why did you do that? Oh, it don't matter. She told me no. So he calls corporate safety office and reports her for refusing to go on a date with him, and said his exact words, because I was standing beside of him when he was talking to him, his exact words was, just because she's married and her husband was sitting in the room is not a reason to not go out with me.
Hold on, the video hiccup there for a second. Can you say, what did she say again, or what? Relate that again. Just the part where he called up corporate on her, and the exact
no, he were, called corporate on her.
Yeah,
he called the corporate safety on her, and told him that he wanted to report her because she would not go out on a date with him. And it did not matter that she was married and her husband worked in that office.
Wow.
Now, when the guy said that, I was trying to drink a cup of coffee. I don't know if you've ever shot coffee out your nose when it's fresh and hot. It burns really bad. But it was actually that day, it was worth it to get a laugh that hard.
Wow.
And yeah, he literally called the corporate safety because she would not go out on a date with him, which this guy had called safety and reported me over 300 times for doing my job. Literally for doing my job. Somehow he managed to get his headset linked to my phone to where he could hear my phone conversations. And he reported me over a conversation that I had with the trainer that I had. And I was having problems with this guy. So I called up my trainer. I still talk to the guy from time to time. Great guy. Think the world of him. But I'm telling him what's going on, and I was asking him for advice. So he calls safety and reports me for asking somebody that he don't know advice on how to train him how to do a job. So, I mean, it was just constantly like that for 7 straight weeks. Every time I turned around.
We've got a humility issue and an attitude issue here already, right? You can see that.
Oh, yeah.
A humility issue
big
and
time.
attitude issue.
And
wow.
Safety calls and lets me know he has his headset linked to your phone. It's okay. I get way out away from him to where he couldn't hear, and I call up Darren, and I'm like, hey, this is what I've got going on. You know how I like to mess with people's head. Give me about 45 minutes. Call me. We're going to have some fun. Darren starts laughing. He says, all right, I'll think about what I'm going to say. We blowed this guy's mind. He was afraid to go to sleep around me after that. And I mean, it was just, we did it to teach the guy a lesson, which didn't do any good because he called and reported me and Darren didn't even work for that company. So that was, yeah. And then,
but that's shady too. You know, hooking his Bluetooth up to your phone is an invasion of your privacy. He had to get a hold of your phone to do that, right? Wow.
He must have done it when I was asleep, because I would lay my phone in a phone holder on the dash when I would lay down to go to sleep so I could plug it up on charge. But that's had to have been when he done it. But yeah, when I found out, yeah, I get up with Darren and I let him know. And yeah, for the remainder of the time that guy was on my truck, Darren made it a point to call me daily just so we could mess with that guy's head. And yeah.
And so that was Darren that made a point of calling you?
Do what?
That was you and Darren? That was you and Darren talking on the phone?
Yeah. And we would do it just to mess with the guy's head.
What were you saying? Were you like, we're going to drop him off in the woods, or he's not going to make it back? Like, what were you, like,
basically,
what kind of thoughts were you putting?
Darren, I didn't say a word, and Darren said, you know, you've got a load where you're going through New Mexico through the high desert. And I said, yeah. And he said, people disappear there all the time. I said, they sure do, don't they? And he said, it would be ashamed if he went in to use the restroom at a rest area and you just drove off in the middle of the night. So we had the guy afraid that I was going to leave him. I wouldn't have left him. Regardless, I would not have left him. I should have, but I didn't. I wanted to, but I didn't.
I've heard it happening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've heard of it's being left.
Yeah. And probably the worst deal with him, though, was we had got a load going down to Laredo, went down, dropped off a loaded trailer, picked up a loaded trailer. And I don't know if you've ever been to Laredo, but when you're coming up Interstate 35, shortly out of Laredo, you have a check station. They x-ray the truck. They ask you questions. Everyone, doesn't matter if you're in a big truck or a car, you have to stop and they check you.
Yep.
And I tell the guy, I'm like, I'm going to go lay down in the back, let you just chill up here and cruise along the way you want to, because you've not listened to anything that I've said. So let's just see how well you do on your own. So I hop in the back, and I feel the truck stop. I knew exactly where we was, and I hear this guy say, are you a U.S. or are you alone? He said, no, my trainer's in the back. He says, okay, are you both U.S. citizens? He said, well, I am, but I don't know about him.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a bad mistake. That nearly got me deported over him saying that. 4 or 5 hours later, we were allowed to go back on, but they literally scattered all of my stuff, all of his stuff, all around the inside of the truck. I mean, they tossed it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a bad day. But
Something happened to your voice there. I don't know. I can't. Your microphone or something.
Is it working now?
No, it's like you're way far away now. It was working really good. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there. Hey, my headset decided to start working again. Holy cow. Ain't that something?
Was it working this whole time?
I've not had it on this whole time. No.
No, I know, but was the speaker picking it up or something? I don't know. Whatever. Sounds great now. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah,
my phone and headset, they do their own thing most of the time. But yeah, those agents, yeah, they got up in the cab of the truck. They took, which I didn't have nothing in the dash of the truck except for stuff like fuses, and some of the small lights that would fit in the dash. They took everything out of my side box, which was my triangles, a few tools for doing minor repairs, more fuses, the bigger lights and stuff like that, just spare stuff. And they scattered them all around. And then all of our clothes on the inside of the truck, they did them the same way. So, yeah, and that took us like an hour and a half to get that mess cleaned up, even with his help. But, yeah, it's that's one of those things to where. Do what?
With this trainee, how did it eventually end with this trainee? Did you drop him off after this, or was this like the last straw?
That was the last straw. I told him that I couldn't tolerate it, and here's what I have against mega carriers, because I was driving for a mega carrier. They don't care how you get your CDL. They will put you in a truck. As a trainer, you have to fill out a small form sheet on your trainee. They either pass or they fail. This guy failed everything on the list. Yeah. And then he failed on his backing. He failed on communication. Over all this stuff with him.
Yeah.
Can you still hear me all right?
Oh, your audio just went out on you again.
What about now?
Well, I can hear you. It was weird how you.
Okay. Yeah, I've had a few people try calling me.
Yep. You're good.
But when and they've got this comment section at the bottom to where you give your thoughts and comments on that trainee. And I put down everything that he was not good at, nowhere near being good at. And it wanted to know if you would pass him. And I put on it, I made it plain on that report, he needed to be put with another trainer that was more capable of dealing with someone like him, that he did not need to be in a truck on his own. And their words to me was, well, we really don't care what you think. We're putting him in a new truck today anyway. And
wow.
I was like, okay, whatever. And
like if they're not going to trust you, what's the point of putting you? You know what I mean? Like,
well, within 3 weeks' time,
like they don't take the trainer seriously.
Yeah. In 3 weeks' time, he proved to them I was right, they were wrong. In 3 weeks, he ripped the hood off of a brand new truck due to his neglect of not latching the hood down. He was late with every load due to it had to be done his way. Me teaching him time management was useless in his opinion. He knew how to do everything because he was older. And what got them to fire him was he gets into a town. Not only does he turn onto a street the wrong way onto a one-way street, he hits a car head on, and that's not the best part. He wipes out a power pole and a fire hydrant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people in the car, he didn't hurt them. They were sitting still. He pulled up against them and started pushing them backwards. So, fortunately, on the car's part, that's all it was. But the power pole and the fire hydrant was unable to move. He moved them, but yeah. So they proved that I was right and they were wrong.
We've had new people try to start where we're at, and when they get put with a trainer, this just happened. We had a guy claim that he had all this experience, he knew how to drive, so he got put with a trainer, and it turned out he didn't have a clue what he was doing. He lied on his resume, and the trainer we have, if he says you can't drive, you're not getting behind the wheel of one of our trucks. You're gone. Like, they take it that seriously. They actually take the trainer seriously because he knows what he's doing. That's the whole point of making him the trainer, right?
Yeah.
So he's almost like a gatekeeper at the same time as being a trainer. So that's what I don't get.
All right, I will. I'm on the phone. Sorry about that. There's another driver was letting me know.
I get it. That's okay.
But
that's why I don't get the point on having a trainer program if you're not going to take the driver trainer seriously.
Yeah, that's my headset's finally doing that crap again.
I can hear you.
Hang on a sec, miss. Okay, You can hear me. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my problem with a lot of these mega carriers. They will have someone be a trainer, and here's my problem with the trainers. If the trainer sees the trainee as a way to make his paycheck fatter, that trainee is not going to learn nothing, because the trainer's not going to be interested in teaching them anything that they need to know. And that's the bad part, because I've seen trainers for companies that was like, well, I don't care if I teach him how to do anything. As long as he can drive the truck forward 500 miles a day, I'm fine. And
wow,
you can't teach. And that's not teaching no one nothing.
Yeah.
And,
I know that
that's bad.
I never trained that many drivers. What's that?
I said that is actually bad when the trainer sees them as a way to make their paycheck bigger.
Yes. I know when I've trained drivers, I've only trained a few. Like, I was on the driver trainer list for the last company I was at. And when I trained drivers, my goal was to teach them. I had the clipboard with all the same stuff you had about, can they do this? Can they do that? So I had that. Yeah. But my goal in training them was also to teach them company culture, like the unofficial chain of command. That's what that's all about, right? So the company politics, and then just educate them about the industry in general, and then try to motivate them and build a relationship with them so they would want to stay and they'd want to learn, they'd want to get better. And to me, that's what we should be doing. And not only should we be doing that, but the company there should be some sort of standardized training within the company to train the trainers to do some of this stuff with their students. You shouldn't just be a trainer unless you actually want to train people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And these companies think, they want to cram what someone has spent years of learning. They want them to cram all of that into someone's head in 5, 6 weeks, 7 tops. You can't do that. I mean, yeah, you can teach them how to handle the truck. You can teach them how to deal with dispatch. You can teach them how to deal with the customer. You cannot teach them everything on dealing with the truck. Mainly, about all you can teach them is how to deal with the customer and dispatch. For Canada, I don't know how the training schools are, but here,
Yes.
From my own experience, they teach you only what you need to know to pass the test.
Yeah.
And they don't give you nothing that is a real world scenario. And the company
standard.
that I drove for, that I was a trainer for, they would make you do these backing courses that are nothing like a truck stop, nothing like backing into a dock. They would set up 2 trailers, pull up to this point, turn the steering wheel this much this direction, pull up, turn steering wheel this much this way, all of that. That's fine if all you're doing is passing the test. But once you make it to that company, you're not out to pass a test anymore.
Yeah.
If you may be backing into a shipper or a receiver where the dock doors are really tight, and the dock door they give you, they may be a truck like what I drive now, a $200,000 rig sitting there on each side of you, and it's a tight dock, and they don't have much room in front of you.
Yep.
And doing it the way that they want you to do it in their courses is not going to get it done. That's actually going to damage stuff.
You're jogging my memory, because when I first started driving, I had to go to the market in Toronto. And that's exactly what it was. It was built in like 1920. I swear there was no room for 53-foot trailers. You really had, you had to have your trailer almost straight before you even, before you even started backing between the 2 trucks.
Yeah.
And there was one time, because the dock bumpers were right butted up against each other, right? That's all the room you had, just a little bit of room between the mirrors. And I hit a guy. I actually backed into a guy, and that is not pleasant, because the yard dog and the guy that was training me, because I was actually with a company trainer, he was guiding me backwards. And he ended up getting into a huge argument with the yard dog. He's like, about how we were backing the truck up, and they got screamed. I thought there was going to be a fist fight. So, yeah, you're bringing back memories of this place.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
If the trainee, if they have the mindset of my first trainee that I had of, well, he's younger than me, he's an idiot, he don't know what he's talking about, I'm smarter than him, that person's not going to learn. They really will not. They're not going to get it.
Yeah.
They have the wrong mindset. The trainee that I had after him, I told him, I made it plain to him. I said, dude, everything you learned in school, forget all of that. I said, unfortunately, the truck is an automatic, but everything they taught you in that school to pass that test, forget all of that. You're going to learn the right way, and you're going to learn real world, because it's not easy. Yeah. And I told him, I said, I used to deliver to Family Dollar stores. You don't always have a driver side back. A lot of times it is a blind back going down a street the wrong way and turning down an alley to get in behind their building. I told him, I said, so we're going to be doing stuff like that every chance we get. And that trainee, when it come time for him, they actually left him 7.5 weeks because they wanted me to bring him back to the terminal where I picked him up from, which was Springfield, Ohio. But when they told me, hey, when you get him back to here, he's going to be testing out. We were in Kent, Washington, way out on the West Coast, and they run us all the way. And they took their time at getting us back. We went from there down into Laredo, Texas, then over to Florida, and from Florida back up into Ohio.
Yep.
It's a long route. But the guy actually listened to me. He was eager. He was 21 years old at the time. Real well spoken, polite, and he's still a truck driver. Still talk to him every now and then.
Yeah.
And he don't drive for that company anymore. But when we get back there, I told him, I said, dude, I have to fill this out on everybody. I said, sit down here beside of me. I said, and I'm going to read this off. I said, and I'm going to read to you. I said, I don't care if they like it or not, that I'm telling you what I'm putting on this paper. And after I put everything down on it and I turned it around, I said, here's my proof of exactly my thoughts. I said, I'm going to hang around until you do your driving test till they say whether or not you passed or not. I taught the guy how to do a blindside back. At the end of his driving test, he had to back a trailer in between two trailers. And he come in the opposite way that everyone else does and done a blindside back and nailed it perfect.
Yep.
I felt like king that day. I mean, I felt like a king because
Hey,
I was
listen.
happy, I was proud. And the guy that gave him his road test looked at me and he said, man, he said, don't know what you told him. He said, but that guy nailed everything perfect.
Yep.
I said, well, I said, I trained him the exact way the trainer that you all put me with trained me. I said, so
Yeah.
there
And
you go.
He was open to receive the training though too, right? Like, he wasn't
Yes.
coming in
Yep.
acting like he knew what he was doing and
Yep.
flapping his gate. That's a big. So let's bring this around. We're coming up to the 53-minute mark. This is going quick. I like to keep it under an hour. So the attitude, let's wrap it up here. Like, we'll bring it around. The attitude that's a good trainee has to have. The attitude that a good trainer has to have. Let's bring that together here. Like, what would you say? What does a good trainee need to have? We've already touched on it, but I'll get you to put a ribbon on it.
A good trainee, they need to be open-minded on when it comes down to everything trucking, willing to learn, eager to learn, basically. And don't be afraid to ask any question, and don't be afraid to make a mistake, because that's what the trainer's there for. Me as a trainer, I'd rather them make their mistakes when they're on the truck with me. That way I can teach them, hey, you made this mistake. You tell me how you think you could have avoided it, and then I'm going to tell you whether you're right or wrong.
Yep.
As a trainer, if you see that person as someone that's going to make your paycheck bigger, don't be a trainer, because that's the wrong mindset. You have to be willing to teach someone and willing to put up with a lot of stupidity. A lot more stupidity than what we have to put up with out on the roads every day. Not everyone is stupid. I mean, just people not paying attention, you know. So you have to, but as a trainer dealing with trainees, you got to be patient. Got to be very patient.
And let's put one more out there. If anybody in management watches this, because this is an evergreen podcast. It's a small channel right now, but at some point it's going to blow up. People will watch it. Management, when they're listening to what you're saying, and what I'm thinking of what you told me about how they treated you with that other trainee. What do you want management to know about trainers, about training? What could they do different to make it make more sense? If you understand what I mean.
For the companies, if the
Yep.
trainer says that person needs more training, but needs to be put with someone that can figure out how to train them the right way, the companies need to do that. They actually need to listen to the trainer rather than looking at them going, well, they have their CDLs, and we need them in a truck seat. That's, you can't run a successful company when you've got people destroying your equipment all the time.
Yeah.
Mega carriers, it probably don't bother them that much, but the company that I work for, we don't train. It's a small tanker company. We have a lot nicer trucks than what the mega carriers have, in my opinion. But for these mega carriers that are training, they need to listen more to their trainers.
Yep.
And look less towards, well, we've got this truck, we need to put someone in it right now.
Yep.
That's the wrong way to do business, in my opinion.
Well, especially with a smaller carrier. I know where I work, if you put one of our trucks out of service, it hurts us. You better listen to the trainer. But
Which,
anyway, yeah.
here where I'm at now, if a truck breaks down, we usually get in a spare truck.
Yeah.
My truck was broke down for 2 weeks. I didn't miss a paycheck due to, they said, well, use that spare truck and keep a hauling.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, Nathan, we're going to wrap it up because it's 58 minutes right now on the dot.
All right.
So, I know after we spoke on the phone, we could probably keep going for hours.
Yeah.
You were actually one of the most interesting people I think I've ever listened to tell your life story. So yeah, we'll talk again. We'll chat again another time, I'm sure. I've got your number here. And if you ever want it, like if you get a burning topic you want to talk about, send me an email. Absolutely, send me an email. Give me a call. Send me a text. And for anybody else listening, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And is there anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Not really. Other than keep the shiny side up and the greasy side down.
Right. Keep the rubber side down. All righty, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. You're actually helping me out a lot. So thank you very much. And we will be in contact again, I'm sure. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate
no problem.
That.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Oh, you too.